নিশি অবসান প্রায়, ওই পুরাতন বর্ষ হয় কত, আমি আজি দুলিতলে জীর্ণ জীবন করিলাম নত। বন্ধু হও, শত্রু হও, যে কেহ যেখানে রও, ক্ষমা করো আজিকার মতো, পুরাতন বরষের সাথে পুরাতন অপরাধ যত। আমাদেরকে দ্বারা দেখছেন এবং শুনছেন বেস্ট ডিএফডব্লিউটিএক্স পেজ থেকে আপনাদের সকলকে নববর্ষের শুভেচ্ছা। বাংলাদেশে নববর্ষের বেশ অনুষ্ঠান দেখলাম এবং আমাদের এই আমেরিকায় বসে যেন সেই যে একটা আমেজ নববর্ষ, সেটা যেন আমরা আজ বুঝতে পারছি। সবাই ভালো থাকবেন এই নতুন বছরকে নিয়ে এবং নতুন আশা নিয়ে। এই জানিয়ে শুরু করছি আমাদের আজকের বেস্ট টক। আপনারা জানেন আমরা বিভিন্ন বিষয় নিয়ে এই বেস্ট টকে আসি, আপনাদের সাথে কথা হয়, আমাদের কিছু অতিথি থাকে যারা বিভিন্ন বিষয়ে আমাদেরকে তাদের মূল্যবান বক্তব্য এবং আমি বলবো সাজেশন দেয় আমাদেরকে। তো সেরকমই দুজন গেস্ট আজ আমাদের আছে এবং আমরা ফেসবুকে যখন দিয়েছিলাম আমার কাছে মনে হলো যে এই বিষয়টি খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স এই টেক্সাস শহরে, এবং এর উপরে আমরা আগে একবার একটা সেমিনার করেছিলাম। সেটা যখন প্রচারিত হয়েছিল, এটা ইন লাইভ এবং ইন পার্সন দুটাই ছিল, এবং তখন আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছিল যে এই প্রোগ্রামটি যারা দেখেছিলেন তারা খুব প্রশংসা করেছিলেন। তো আমরা সেই বিষয়টি নিয়ে এবছর আবার এসেছি, কারণ সামনেই কিন্তু সময়, এবং এই প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের জন্য আপনারা যারা জানতে চান ডেডলাইনগুলো জেনে নেবেন। বিভিন্ন কাউন্টিতে কিন্তু বিভিন্ন সময়ে, সবগুলোই কিন্তু মে মাসের একই দিনে নয়। তো আমরা এগুলো নিয়ে আলোচনা করব। তা চলুন প্রথমে আমরা বরং আমাদের যেই দুজন অতিথি আছে তাদের সাথে আলাপ করিয়ে দিই। মিজান রশিদ, আপনাকে অনেক অনেক শুভেচ্ছা আমাদের এই বেস্টটাকে আসবার জন্য। আর আগেও আমরা করেছি আপনার সাথে। আজকে যে বিষয়টি নিয়ে এসেছেন এটা নিয়ে তো অনেক কিছু জানবো। তো আমাদের বেস্টের সাথে থাকবার জন্য ধন্যবাদ।
কে আপা, অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। বেস্টের কাছে আমি কৃতজ্ঞ বিভিন্ন সময়ে বিভিন্ন সুযোগ করে দেওয়ার জন্য। প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স আমার এক্স্যাক্টলি আমার এরিয়া না, এটা একটু স্পেশালাইজড এরিয়া, বাট অ্যাজ এ রিয়েলটার আমার মনে হয় যে এটা আমার দায়িত্ব, আমাদের যে কমিউনিটিতে এটার একটা অ্যাওয়ারনেস জেনারেট করা, এবং অ্যাওয়ারনেসের মাধ্যমে প্রত্যেকে উই ক্যান অ্যাকচুয়ালি মেক মানে সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ ডলার সেভিংস থ্রু দিস অ্যাক্টিভিটি। তো ওটা থেকে আমার মনে হয় আমার একটা সামাজিক দায়বদ্ধতা আছে একজন রিয়েলটর হিসেবে, সেই দায়বদ্ধতা থেকেই এটাকে নিয়ে আসা। কিন্তু বেস্টের আজকে যে প্ল্যাটফর্ম আপনার সৃষ্টি করেছেন, ওই প্ল্যাটফর্মটুকু না হলে পরে এটাকে নিয়ে যাওয়া যেত না। সো ওই প্ল্যাটফর্ম দেওয়ার জন্য অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ, and thank you so much to you and the all officials of BEST.
আচ্ছা, তো আমি আসলে আপনাকে দিয়ে শুরু করতে চাইলাম, কারণ রায়ান রে এখানে আছে। আমি চাই আপনি ওনাকে আলাপ করিয়ে দিবেন, কারণ আমরা জানি যে উনি আজকে কথা বলবেন বেশিটাই হয়তো প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের উপরে। তো চলুন তার সাথে আলাপ করি।
We also have our actually expert guest on this particular subject. I'm not an expert, I'm a realtor, as I was saying in Bangla. So we have our expert, Mr. Ryan Ray. He's the president of Raytax Group. Raytax Group is operating in Texas on property taxes for quite some time, and we'll learn it from Ryan himself. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. and for the support you have been extending to our community. So would you please just take a couple of minutes just to introduce yourself and the tax group?
Yes, thank you for having me. So my name is Ryan Ray. I'm an attorney and a senior property tax consultant over in Fort Worth. Um, started after I got out of law school in 2009, so been doing it 16 years. We kind of have grown. First year, I on my own, we did 254 accounts, 700 and or about $70 million in value, and this last year, uh, I've got a team of about 50 in the season and 30 or so in the off season. We handled 35,000 accounts throughout Texas. Most of those in North Texas. That's where we're based and where a significant portion of our business is, but operate throughout Texas, and we've over a little bit over $20 billion in cumulative value, and we're able to get significant reductions, about $1.8 billion in reductions on that book last year. It depends county by county, kind of, and the some are a bit easier to work with than others, but get some pretty significant reductions. So we've got a great team, and software, which is kind of key in this business, is figuring out how each appraisal district works, and kind of working to find the best way to work with them and to get the results that we need. So anyway, I appreciate you having me and look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you. Kiapa?
হ্যাঁ, আমরা বরং মিজান ভাই একটু
Yes.
শুরু থেকে যাই। আর আজকে আমাদেরকে যারা দেখছেন একটু বলে রাখি, আমরা ইংলিশ বাংলা দুটো মিলেই কথা বলবো। কারণ আমাদের গেস্ট কিন্তু সব প্রশ্নের উত্তর ইংলিশে দিবে। তো আপনারা এটাকে সহজভাবে নিবেন, এবং আমি জানি এখানে যারা আমেরিকায় আছেন আপনারা অলরেডি সবাই অভ্যস্ত যে ২ ভাবেই আমরা কথা বলি। তো মিজান ভাই, আমরা বরং শুরুতে এই প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স এর ব্যাপারটা আমরা এই সময় কেন তুলে ধরলাম সেই দিক থেকে প্রশ্নগুলা করি। কারণ এই যে এরিয়া, আপনারা ধরেন এই এরিয়াতে সার্ভ করছেন, ডিএফডব্লিউ এরিয়াটা, তাই না? তো এখানে যেই কাউন্টিগুলো আছে সেই কাউন্টিগুলোর এখন কারেন্ট যে প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স রেট, হাউ ইটস গেট ক্যালকুলেটেড অ্যান্ড হোয়াট ইজ দ্য ডেডলাইন, এটা দিয়ে যদি আমরা শুরু করি, if you can tell us detail what are the deadlines for each county, and what is the last day we can apply for, and how it gets calculated, that property tax.
You want to go about it?
Yeah, so generally it does vary sometimes as far as the deadlines, but I mean, generally assume the deadline is going to be May 15th. The appraisal districts can extend that in certain circumstances, but everywhere in North Texas, it's more than likely going to be May 15th. Denton sometimes extends it out. They send their notices out a little later than some of the others, and extend out the deadline, but we won't know until they officially drop them. But yeah, generally it's May 15th. Though, don't wait until the last minute. It's best to get it in and protest early, or hopefully sign up with us. But you want to do that early, and not wait until the very last minute. And then you get a lot of folks that do, and I tend to procrastinate on my personal things. But it's drop dead deadline is May 15th. Generally.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other question was how the taxes are calculated. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty, it gets pretty complicated, but I mean,
That's
generally speaking, it's, you've got, you hear about the schools the most. That's the biggest part of the property tax bill. But it's not the only part. So I would say on average, the school district taxes are 50 to 60% of your overall property tax bill. And then you've got, city, county, and in the larger counties, especially, you've got, the community college and the hospital district, and you may have additional special districts, or you may have even like community, TIFs, and there's PIFs and things like that. If you're in like Las Colinas, they have an additional tax kind of by the Las Colinas tax improvement district. So all those are added together. In North Texas, because of rate compression from the legislature, they've really bought down those rates year over years. So the average rates right now are probably about 2%. And it's obviously, it can vary again by where you're at. It could be somewhat higher, it could be somewhat lower, but so you assume about 2% without taking into account any homestead exemptions. If you've got a piece of property in Dallas County with no homestead exemptions, $100,000 piece of property, just say a vacant tract of land, you can expect to pay $2,000 in property taxes, right? Now, it gets more complicated, when the homestead exemptions, the legislature is looking to increase that a little bit, which would be good. So right now, I think the first 100,000 in value on a homestead is exempt for school district purposes, not for the other entities. That's kind of optional. So it really just depends on where you're at, because in like Dallas, the city and the school district have, I think, a 20% value exemption, right? That they don't have in other places, so the tax rates may be lower. So if you had a $500,000 property in Dallas, you may have the first 100,000 is exempt on the school district portion, and then 20% or 100,000 might be exempt on all your taxing entities. And then so you're paying taxes on 300,000 for the school district and 400,000 for the other entities, and just assuming it's 10% or 2%. So it's kind of convoluted, but I mean, a general rule of thumb, is just expect to pay around 2% of the property's value if you're taking out any exemptions.
So Ryan, is there any
just to compliment?
Sure.
If I could compliment Ryan, see, from a layman, so what Ryan gave is the detailed stack up of how the taxes are calculated.
Okay.
But as a property owner, as a layman, when you get an assessment or the first letter, what you get is a set of values which the county lets you know about your property. There, that they call is market value. Now, the market value of the property is a starting point. So they make an assessment of the market value of your property. But however, market value is not the determinant factor of the property tax for the property. It's actually the final assessed value of your property. So don't fall prey for sometimes what the county does is reduce your market value of the property. So the market value was reduced by 65,000 from 685 to 520. And at the end of the year, you find out that your taxes didn't go down even a single penny, whatever was initially assessed. Why? Because you fell prey for this market value reduction, which is not correlated to the property tax that you pay on your property. So that's kind of good to know information for all the property owners, homeowners in DFW.
Okay, and also this is the property tax. It's kind of it annually they pre-assessed, right? Each year.
Yes, each year.
Okay. So is there, Ryan, is there any exemption like veterans, like all the disabled people or seniors? What are the exemption Texas has?
Well, yeah, I mean, the primary one is just your homestead,
Mhm.
which you can have on one property, um, non-commercial property, um, where you reside. It's got to be the address on your driver's license. That same homestead exemption, there are some kind of additional exemptions, which would be disabled person. For that, you have to qualify for Social Security disability benefits. They're not making a determination of whether or not you're disabled. You don't have to go in and it's if you qualify for Social Security disability benefits, then you can get the disability exemption. Over 65, um, you just have to be over 65 and have your homestead. That doesn't apply to your other properties if you've got rentals or anything else. It's only on your personal homestead. And then, for disabled veterans, there's some additional exemption options depending on your disability rating by the state, or not the state, but by the Department of Veterans Affairs. If you have a 100% disability rating, then don't have to pay any property taxes if you're a 100% disabled veteran. But that's fairly rare. But so those are the primary exemptions, and then there's that's basically it.
আমাদেরকে যারা দেখছেন তাদেরকে জানিয়ে দেই আমরা বেস্ট DFWTX পেজ থেকে আপনাদের সামনে এসেছি আজকে প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের উপরে কথা বলতে। আমাদের দুজন গেস্ট কথা বলছেন এবং আপনাদের যে কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকতে পারে এই প্রোগ্রাম সম্পর্কে এবং আপনারা আমাদেরকে কমেন্ট সেকশনে জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন। আমরা চেষ্টা করব আমাদের অতিথিদের কাছ থেকে এই প্রশ্নের উত্তরগুলি জানিয়ে দেবার। আর যারা আমাদেরকে দেখছেন অনেক ধন্যবাদ, সাথে থাকবেন, আপনাদের যে কোনো প্রশ্ন লিখে জানাবেন। আর আমি আবার প্রশ্নে ফিরে যাচ্ছি।
এক্সাম্পশনে কি আপনারা জাস্ট কমপ্লিমেন্ট করি আবারও।
শিওর।
Homestead exemption is the largest because every homeowner for the primary residence can get that. এখন আমাদের there are a lot of homeowners, the first time homeowners যারা কিনা এটা ওইভাবে হয়তো জানেন না যে there is a homestead exemption, and then you need to apply this, Ryan, if I'm not wrong, once you have lived in that house for about 6 months or more, right?
As soon as you purchase the home, I mean, you
can apply for that. Yeah. So আমাদের ফার্স্ট টাইম হোমওনাররা অনেকে হয়তো জানেন না, এবং যদি না জানেন এবং অ্যাপ্লাই না করেন তাহলে পরে এটা কিন্তু কিক ইন করবে না, এবং কিক ইন না করলে পরে ইউ মিস আউট অন দ্যাট। ইটস এ সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ অ্যামাউন্ট, অলমোস্ট অ্যাবাউট $2,000 a year. নাও একটা জিনিস জেনে রাখতে পারেন যে যারা অ্যাপ্লাই করেননি তারা you can apply it for last 2 years. So the homestead exemption, even if you forgot to apply, you can actually get it for last 2 years in retrospective, whatever the legal term for that. So if you forgot, you're not going to get for last 5 years, but at least whatever you can get is something good. So যদি ভুলে যান তাহলে please make sure that you're applying and you're applying for last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Mizan, Rashid, I have another question then, because in the community we usually doesn't be too serious about this property tax, as far as I know.
Yep.
So even though it's the general questions, but I think we should mention it in this talk show. What are the things I need, or what are the paperwork do I have to go through to apply for this reassessment of property tax?
Okay, thank you. It is a very good pertinent question. First of all, let me dwell on a little bit on why should even bother about property tax? Because it's a government thing. Government is imposing, and government is very intelligent, very considerate. Not necessarily. So you see, when you are looking after your property, um, one of the things that we need to consider, Texas is one of the high property tax states in the entire United States. It's within the top 10. I think it ranks about, I think top seven is the seventh highest property tax states. So the tax rate in our state is very high, and therefore the tax amount that we pay, it constitutes a high percentage of our total annual expenses. So if a household spends, for example, about $100,000 a year, that household spends about $10,000 on property tax in just one shot. So it's a significant amount of money that you're talking about, and any savings that you can make out of your 10% of your total annual expense is a substantive savings. So that's the kind of the background that I am coming from. Otherwise, this entire thing, why do you even bother? Now, property tax, a lot of people, especially from our community, thinks that because it's coming from the state government, the local government, these are something sacrosanct. These are cast in stone, or can't be changed. Not necessarily, because Ryan, last year he filed, how many you said, 35,000, right? 35,000 lawsuits, and that came to a savings of that much amount of dollars. So when we look at a macro picture, a lot of time things are not does not become very clear to us. I can give you my example only. Last year, in in 2023, I actually made a protest myself. Yeah. And I went to the county, one in Tarrant County, one in Denton County. I being a realtor, I do have access to information. So I presented those, and all I had is a reduction in market value. And my tax dollar amount, didn't go even a single penny in 2023. It went up. It went up 10% in Denton County. Tarrant County, it went up because of investment. It went up about 15%. Now, in 2024, when we applied this professionally through Ray Tax Group, I made a savings. I made a savings of $2,500. And now $2,500, I had to pay Ray. I had to pay you $500, $501. That's a lot of money for me. But you see, I made a solid $2,000 savings, which if I didn't do anything, I would have to pay to the government, to Denton County and Tarrant County, respectively. So this is important that we actually protest. We do take it up seriously. And more importantly, why? Because if I didn't make this savings of $2,500, $2,500 in 2024, in 2025, my starting point would be X plus $2,500 multiplied the additional increase of that rate. So this reduction, whatever you are getting, once you start getting it in perpetuity. So anybody who makes a savings of $1,000 in 1 year, he makes $1,000 savings the next year, times whatever increase. He's not going to pay. The next year, she's not going to pay the $1,000 times whatever the increase. So this reduction is extremely important, because it kicks in and continues to give you savings in perpetuity. And the last thing is, even if you don't complain, especially I've seen in the investment properties, or even in the homestead properties, if you don't complain, you don't create a kind of history of disagreement. So you continue to agree to whatever the assessment has always been. And therefore, when you make a protest all on a sudden, say in after 5 years, that may not hold as much water as it could have had if you continue to make protest over the 5 years, because you are not agreeing to certain things. Now, coming to your real question, and therefore, how do you protest, and what are the information that is
Mhm.
required? You see, there are ways which the counties make assessment, um, and one of the ways is something is through comparison. It's one of the many ways, and I would ask Ryan later on to please do a little bit on. So one of the ways is comparison, which a lot of I have the information to compare my property value with the others that got sold, blah blah. But there are other ways of assessing the market value of a particular property, which a general customer doesn't have. We don't have the expertise, and therefore a lot of time, when in 2023, when I was handling this all by myself, the reason I failed is because the know-how is not available to me. I'm not an expert. So when Ryan goes there, he leaves this day in and day out, and he has been doing it for last 15 years. So the expert, any expert helps actually. Sorry, any work which is done professionally is bound to yield better result compared to the same work done by any layman. So I would say that, first of all, you always protest,
Mhm.
always take it up. You don't take it as granted, even if you don't appoint a professional. But once you have protested, I would suggest do it professionally. If you're qualified, do it yourself, no problem. But if you're not, which most of are not, then appoint someone who is qualified. And Rate as Group is qualified, in my opinion. And Ryan, if you want to add anything on that.
I'd just say, I mean, Mizan referenced, filing a protest in Tarrant and Denton, and I know folks have properties in Collin and Dallas, and each one of them operates completely differently, right? So, um, as far as the number of comps or comparable properties to look at, as far as the way that they adjust them, which is the big deal, you could take, if you had a property, let's theoretically, a duplex that was split down the middle between Dallas and Tarrant County, and you went in and you protested in Dallas County with 5 sales, they could say, oh, these sales indicate no value change whatsoever, right? They indicate a higher value. You could go to Tarrant County and take those same 5 sales, and they could say, oh, well, these indicate a 5% reduction in value. It's completely, and it's not arbitrary. It's just that they have their own standards and their own methodologies of doing things, and so that's the prism that they're going to look at it. So you really need to know, and sometimes in the case of Tarrant, it's pretty simple. In the case of Dallas, it's pretty complex, and also pretty complex in Denton and Collin to get the exact methodology that they're using, because there's a lot of complicated formulas and tables. So what we've done is we go and we built out the this basically a replica of the appraisal district's methodology, so that we can run all the comps that might possibly be useful, and determine which are the absolute lowest, both on, so market is part of it, and then equal and uniform is the other part, which so the market value may actually be good, and I mean, appraisal districts aren't awful. I mean, their job is to set a value based off of the market data that they have, but there's also equal and uniform, and so that is looking at the value of other people's properties on the tax rolls. And I mean, one, if they've protested and you haven't, historically, I mean, last year my average reduction in Tarrant County was 16.7%. So that means that if they set everybody based off of their methodologies, right? And I represented, however many homeowners in a neighborhood, with an average reduction of 16.7%, those values are significantly lower than your neighbors. It's almost shifting the burden from the people that don't protest to the people that, from the people that do protest to the people that don't protest. Anyway, the equal and uniform, and there's a lot of other elements to it too. But sometimes they'll literally, value one property at, at 600,000, and then you may have a similar property that didn't even protest that's on at 500,000, and maybe there's some logic behind that, or maybe it was a recent purchase and they purchased it at 500,000 and it got reduced down to that 500,000. But the overall market anyway, my point is there's a lot of different factors to look at. So you've got kind of two methods of valuation, a lot of different points on how you factor that, because so like Mizan can pull some sales, right? And he can take those in, and as a general rule of thumb, and a realtor is going to look at kind of a price per square foot, but the appraisal districts don't look at a price per square foot. They have a very complicated methodology based off of square footage, based off of the pools, which is relatively easy to calculate, a number of different factors that gets to a much different kind of way of assessing things than even really a fee appraiser might, or a realtor. So we know what those are. We know how to identify the best comps and how to argue the most effectively with the appraisal district what is going to be a successful argument. So I do think that as far as a value proposition, I do look at every year in the major counties that we're in, how homeowners do without representation, kind of in the aggregate on data, and how we do. And I mean, we're always significantly better than unrepresented individuals, and usually better than most of the other firms. It depends, but not always. There's, yeah. So I definitely think there's a value proposition that we provide, and able to get, in often cases, significantly larger reductions than homeowners would get on their own.
Okay, I think I should add in a simpler version, like it's a government program to help us. So why not take that? Why not take that chance? So first, question this to yourself, if you are a homeowner, any property owner, and try to get it. If you are not feeling comfortable doing it by yourself, contact Ray, or take the professional help, because professionals are expert and they know better than individual what we know. So take that and do that property tax reassessment and see what happens. And there is a chance that you can get benefited. Take that chance, in a nutshell. So that should be your view to the next May is coming here pretty soon. It's April now. So look at those deadlines and make up your mind. Go and do that property tax thing. So Mizan bhai, Ray, we are talking about property tax, and in between, that our big celebration, Boishakhi Mela, is coming on, and I want to share some information about the Boishakhi Mela to our community through this live program. So আপনারা যারা আমাদেরকে দেখছেন, আপনারা জানেন যে আমাদের বৈশাখী মেলা অলরেডি প্রায় এসে গেছে। সামনের 27শে এপ্রিল আমাদের বৈশাখী মেলা, এবং এইবার বৈশাখী মেলা অনুষ্ঠিত হচ্ছে প্ল্যানেটে। এটা হাইওয়ে 75 এবং পার্কের ইন্টারসেকশনের একদম কাছেই। হাইওয়ে থেকে এক্সিট নিলেই আপনারা গ্র্যান্ড সেন্টার খুব সহজে পেয়ে যাবেন। তো আপনাদের জন্য মনে হয় লোকেশনটা এবার অনেক অনেক বেটার, যারা অনেক দূরের থেকে আসেন, কারণ পেনালো মোটামুটি বলা চলে in the middle of the city. So গ্র্যান্ড সেন্টারে আমাদের বেস্টের বৈশাখী মেলা এবার 27শে এপ্রিল শুরু হবে বিকেল 4টা থেকে এবং চলবে রাত 10টা পর্যন্ত। পরের দিন সোমবার। সো আমরা চাই আপনারা সময় মতো আসবেন, যাতে আমাদের সম্পূর্ণ অনুষ্ঠানটা দেখে আপনারা বাড়ি গিয়ে সুন্দর ঘুম দিয়ে পরদিন সকালে সবাই কাজে যেতে পারেন, স্কুলে যেতে পারেন। আর বলে দেই, আমাদের এবার বৈশাখী মেলার প্রধান আকর্ষণ থাকছে মাইলস। মাইলস আসছে আমেরিকাতে লেগাসি ট্যুরে এবং আপনাদের সাথে তাদের দেখা হবে। একসাথে গলা মিলিয়ে বৈশাখের যত জনপ্রিয় গান আছে গাইতে পারবেন, মাইলসের গান শুনতে পারবেন, গাইতে পারবেন এবং তাদের সাথে দেখা হওয়ার এই সুযোগ অবশ্যই হাতছাড়া করবেন না। যারা আগে থেকে টিকিট কেটে রাখতে চান, আমাদের ওয়েবসাইটে যদি আসেন বেস্ট DFWTX, এই পেজেই কিন্তু আমাদের ইভেন্ট লিঙ্ক শেয়ার করা আছে, আমাদের টিকিট কাটার যে লিঙ্ক সেটাও দেয়া আছে। শুধু ওখানে ক্লিক করলেই হবে। এবং এবার টিকিট কাটার অপশনটা বেশ ভ্যারাইটি বলবো। আপনারা জেল ইউজ করতে পারেন, আপনারা চেক ইউজ করতে পারেন, কোনো ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট ইউজ করতে পারেন, ক্রেডিট কার্ড ইউজ করতে পারেন, অনেক ধরনের অপশন আছে। সো যদি চান টিকিট আগে করবেন, অবশ্যই করে ফেলবেন আমাদের বেস্ট DFWTX পেজে এবং ইভেন্ট পেজে এই টিকিটের লিঙ্ক দেয়া আছে। এছাড়াও কিন্তু আমাদের এবারের মেলায় আরেকটি নতুন আকর্ষণ যুক্ত হয়েছে, বাচ্চাদের জন্য শুধু নয়, আমরা যারা এখানে থাকি অনেকেই কিন্তু পেটিং জু খুব পছন্দ করি। তো আশা করি আপনারা আসবেন আপনাদের বাচ্চাদের সহ, বন্ধু বান্ধব সহ এবং এই পেটিং জু এর কাছে যাবেন। আশা করি আপনাদের বাচ্চারা খুব ফান করবে। এখানে কিছু টয় স্টল আছে, এখানে বাবল থাকবে, বাচ্চারা খেলতে পারবে। তো আমরা এবার খুবই আশা করছি, যেহেতু ছেলে বুড়ো সবাই আসে আমাদের মেলায়, আমরা আশা করছি এবার সবাই মজা করতে পারবেন। অনেক সময় দেখা যায় যে বাচ্চারা এসে কান্নাকাটি করে যে মেলায় আমাদের জন্য তো কিছু নাই। তো আমরা বাচ্চাদের কথা চিন্তা করে এবার আসলে পেটিং জুটা অ্যাড করেছি। আর যারা শপিং পছন্দ করেন, আপনারা অলরেডি জানেন যে বেস্টের মেলায় বড় একটা ভেন্ডর গ্রুপ থাকে, যারা মার্চেন্ডাইজ নিয়ে আসে। সেখানে জুয়েলারি থাকে, সেখানে শাড়ি থাকে, গয়না থাকে, সালোয়ার কামিজ থাকে। ফুড তো অবশ্যই আমাদের একটা বড় আকর্ষণ। অনেক ধরনের ফুড পাবেন, যত অথেন্টিক বাংলাদেশি খাবার আমরা জানি, আমার মনে হয় মেলায় আসলে কেউ মিস করবেন না। চায়ের আড্ডা চলবে এবং আরো একটি নতুন সংযোজনা এবার আমাদের বেস্টের মেলায়, লেখক কর্নার। আপনাদের জন্য এই শহরে যারা লেখক আছেন তারা বই নিয়ে আসবে, তাদের সাথে দেখা হবে আপনাদের লেখক কর্নারে। অবশ্যই সেখানে থাকতে ভুলবেন না। আশা করি তাদের সাথেও আপনাদের চায়ে এবং বইয়ের প্রসঙ্গে আড্ডা ভালো জমে উঠবে। তো মেলা নিয়ে অনেক কথা বলে ফেললাম। আসলে আমরা এই লাইভের মাধ্যমে আপনাদেরকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাতে চাই, আমাদের বিনম্র আহ্বান থাকবে, আপনারা নিজেরা তো আসবেনই, আপনাদের বন্ধু বান্ধব, আত্মীয় স্বজন সবাইকে নিয়ে আসবেন। এটি একটি মহামিলন মেলা, এই সুযোগ নষ্ট করবেন না। সবার সাথে দেখা হবে, আনন্দ হবে, আমরা সবাই মিলে বৈশাখের আনন্দ ভাগ করব। তো মিজান ভাই, আমরা তো কথা বলছি অনেকক্ষণই, তো আমাদেরকে দেখছেনও অনেকে আছেন। আপনাদের দুইজনকে আবারও আমি আরেকবার ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই। রে, থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ ফর বিং হেয়ার অ্যান্ড রিপ্লাইং টু আওয়ার questions and concerns. So let's get back to our other information we want to know or we want to convey to the community. When we talk about property tax, we know that our government, local government, use those property tax somewhere, right? One, we know is school, and what other areas they do invest from those money.
Ray actually briefly answered. Could you just briefly touch
Yeah,
on, please?
Just
Ray?
briefly, we just want the community to know a little bit more.
The where the tax money going? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, property taxes are used to pay, in Texas, we don't have an income tax. So we have property tax and sales tax are the two primary revenue drivers for our, cities and local governments. But I guess the key here is that, really the appraisal or the district, the taxing entities are going to set their tax rates at the end of the season in September, October, after all the protests are done, and they have a total value. So what, you're not necessarily reducing the amount of money that's going to go to the, your cities to pay for fire or anything else by protesting. You're just making sure that it's distributed a little bit more fairly, that tax burden a little bit more fairly, and not overly impacting, with the properties that you own. But I mean, it pays for our city services and school districts to a point, though. The state contributes a significant amount of money from sales tax to school district operations. But
I have another question, Mizan Bhai and Ray. So, okay, I applied for my property tax. I mean, the property tax I got, I am not agreeing with it. So, I applied for reassessing it, and they come back, and they are also not agreeing what I think that it should be my property tax. So, is there any way that we can appeal or go to other places, or they are the one who decide, and that's we have to. I mean, we have to take. There is no other way that we can appeal. Is there anything like that?
well, I mean, that's what we do is we appeal. I mean, there's the appraisal review board, and then once we go through the appraisal review board, if that's not as successful as we would like, then there are options to file arbitration or to file a lawsuit against the appraisal district. I mean, part of that depends really on the property's value, whether or not it's worth pursuing, be larger to really justify litigation. But yeah, there are options. Kind of the first step is talking with the appraisal district, then the appraisal review board, and then arbitration or litigation.
Yeah, I think, Kepa, what will be important is that the window is so limited. So once these taxes go out, by the time you get the hard copy of the letter in your mailbox, I think all put together, you may actually have about 20 days. So during that window of time, you have the opportunity to
Protest.
formally protest. Yes. Because if you don't do that, still you can protest. Ray, correct me if I'm wrong. You can still protest, but by that time, you have missed the right window of opportunity.
Okay.
So
yeah, there are for late protests, but it's more difficult, and you've got a higher burden. So
okay, so if I get it right, for personally, what I can share is when we get everything in written, then we protest. So kind of it's already late, right? When we are protesting after they sent us all the paperwork and the property tax amount. So
no,
we
not
should
really, not
protest.
really. So what you get is a proposed tax for the new year.
Okay.
So, for example, this year, within next couple of weeks, the homeowners are going to get that letter from our respective counties. What is our proposed tax for this year? Proposed tax. That's not finalized yet. So now, during that time, so from the time of you get the letter or the tax, that letter is out. These days you can actually access that letter through your on the property county website. You can also get it electronically. So as soon as that letter is out, about 4 weeks time, you need to make sure that you are protesting or you are appointing someone to protest on your behalf. Because if that starting point is not right, then your opportunity to really make any difference becomes that much harder. So once you have taken the first right step, then comes the rest of the burden of proof to really prove that what you are saying, your assessment, what is your assessment of the property, and why that is correct, not the county one is. So, and that's a huge, to and fro argument where the expert help actually can make a difference.
Okay, thank you so much for clearing me up. Mizan Bhai, if so, you are also a realtor. So I just want to know the other side of property tax. Means like when a house is getting sold, getting, I mean, being buy for to someone. So do you factor those property tax in, or is there any effect of property tax on uh, that property?
The property tax is normally paid
Hmm.
by both parties. Is prorated. So
Okay.
if it's the closing date on, for example, July 30th, July 30th is just half the year passed. So if the closing date is July 30th, then half the year's property tax burden is taken up by the seller. The rest half is paid by the buyer. Now here, the only difference is uh, that you should consider. Sometimes there are exemptions to property taxes, which if you are not aware as a buyer, exemption to the seller because of special circumstances. Now, if you are not aware, that may actually hit you back when, as a new buyer, you own that property. Now, your realtor should be making you aware of the situation, and those are not for the regular home purchases, home buying. Those are mostly relating to land, and I know land, the AG exempt land. But other than that, is there anything else that ran there which the buyer needs to be aware?
Well, the biggest issue is when people acquire. I mean, one, if you acquire a property from somebody that had, an over 65 exemption in place for a long time, or maybe some other disabled person exemption, where the property was the taxes were frozen at a significantly lower than market rate for a long time,
Hmm.
Or a more common scenario I see is when people buy brand new homes
Correct.
that were taxed the prior year at the value of the lot. So you go and you buy a house and it's taxed. Let's say the lot is worth $100,000, so the taxes are $2,000. You buy a house for $500,000, and then your taxes are going to be $10,000.
Yeah.
But you know, people, a lot of times people don't pay attention to these things. The title companies don't necessarily tell them, and the realtors may not even know to mention it. But then you get your mortgage amount, and your escrow amount is set based off that $2,000, and then it goes up, and then your mortgage goes up $700 a month, and scenarios like that definitely happen, and just people just aren't aware that they're going to be hit with a significantly larger property tax bill.
Correct.
So that's something definitely to be aware of. Is just because the taxes have been one amount doesn't mean that's going to be what they are. You need to assume that you're going to be paying taxes on the value of the property you're purchasing, right? So if you're buying it for $500,000, you need to assume you're going to be paying taxes on $500,000 at whatever the tax rates are. Like you said, about 2%. Now we'll fight to get it down, and that's what I do, right? And I often get properties below the actual purchase price, but you need to assume that and budget for that, because I've definitely had people, and they get, sometimes people get upset with me, their top property taxes triple, and I get a nice reduction on it, but it's still 2.5 times what it was,
Yeah.
and I'm like, look, there's no mechanism in the law or anywhere else to get this down just because the prior owner had an over 65 exemption that carried forward, or it was a vacant lot last year. There's nothing that we can do other than fight the current value, and we can get it down as low as we can go, but it's not magic. I mean, there's still laws, there's still logic that's involved here. So I can't go in and say a $500,000 house is worth $100,000. It's just not. No one's gonna, So that's the only thing to really watch out for. And I wish that realtors and title companies would be more cognizant of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we also see a lot of first-time home buyers in Texas because last few years after COVID hit, a lot of people are coming from very different area. Those are not usually moving to Texas before COVID hit. So California, New York, and so many places. So for those first-time home buyer in Texas, can you just elaborate a little bit about the escrow accounts and the property tax payment in Texas, if there is anything particular exceptional than other states?
I don't really know how it works in other states. So, I think the main thing is for most people, they're going to be buying and their property is going to be in escrow, or the taxes are going to be in escrow, and they just need to be, going to be paid by the main thing is that we have probably the most property owner and friendly appeals process in the country. So in California, or in some of these other states, it may not have ever even occurred to you to protest. But here, I mean, if you're not protesting, you're probably overpaying and you're paying more than your neighbors. And so, it needs to be something that you do to really minimize your tax burden and maximize the amount of money that keep in your pocket.
Okay, so I think we are coming to close of this live talk show, but there are what other factors? Maybe I did not ask you, but you think that it's important to let the community know. If you can talk about it, Mizan Bhai or Ray, and also is there any? I mean, what are the factors of the neighborhoods that can give you the best value when you are comparing home prices and property tax? Because I know, our home area, our neighborhood, when we bought, the price increases so much within 1 or 2 years. Now we are paying a lot of property taxes. So I just want to know that what kind of neighborhoods are the best value about those when we are deciding, because as a homeowner, we will pay the home mortgage and we will also pay the property tax for. So when those two added up for the homeowners, it's a lot of burden.
It is. It is. You see, as far as the property tax is concerned, across the counties, I think the highest tax rate in 4 of the DFW counties, the highest is in Tarrant, followed by Collin.
Okay.
I think the lowest is in Denton. Now, but when I say highest and lowest, you are talking about a difference of about 0.2 to 0.3%. So 0.3% or 0.2% over $500,000, it's not a significant. It's just a good dollar amount, but it's not a very big amount of money that you're talking about. So whether you choose a property in Plano or you choose a property in Fort Worth or nice Denton County in Flower Mound, in terms of the total tax burden, it's not going to be a significant difference. So therefore, the choice of property can never be driven by how much additional property tax you're going to pay, unless there is an element, and that's something you talked about the first time home buyer. A lot of first time home buyers
Mhm.
I make them aware that if there is an element of PID or MUD, PID-MUD, these are additional, taxes levied by the county or the city for PID's Planned Improvement District Tax, MUD's Municipality Utility District Tax. So these are additional taxes and significant additional taxes, 4.4%, 4.5% additional tax that may the homeowner, even without knowing, may actually be liable to. So that's
Okay.
something may make uh, that's something the home buyer should be made aware by the realtor, and that would certainly make a good decision making factor as far as the home buying is concerned. Other than that, it's the is the other factor which the the customer will make his decision based on,
Okay.
not so much.
Good to know. And now come to the $1 million question. Means you are here, both of you, Ryan and you want us to get educated about the property tax so we can get benefited from the government program. Because we can protest the property tax government is asking for the first time. We can protest and we can lower it down so we can get benefited. So my question is, how you help your clients, and is there any fee for helping out, or it depends on realtor? We know that we can go to one realtor, and if we buy the house, then you are getting paid as a realtor, right? But
Correct.
here, when we are protesting our property tax, what is the procedure you follow, and what is the fee, and can someone um, ask you about general question without paying any fee?
So, well, I don't know if you wanted to answer Mizan, but
Now, please go on. I can add more. Yeah.
so yeah, generally, normally our fee is 30%
Yeah.
of any tax savings that's
Okay.
generated. We've got working with Mizan, we've got a code there. If you sign up, just his name, Mizan, and we'll do 20%, I think. So we save you $500, we bill you $100, and maybe 1,000, we'll bill you 2,000 or 200, not 2,000. It's pretty simple, and if we don't get you any savings, it's based off of actual tax savings. No savings, no fee, and that's how we operate. And so we're able to, fortunately, or I wouldn't still be in business, generate a lot of tax savings for our clients. And so, it's pretty.
Yeah, and of course you have a company, and there is so much cost. I know each company, or when you are running any kind of service or business, does not mean what kind of it is. There are a lot of costs. There are fixed costs. There are so many other flexible costs, and it can. Of course, you will have those. So good to know that it's not much, and I think
Yeah,
all
because,
of us who
uh,
are who are paying property tax, we can do that.
now, the last 30 seconds from my
Mhm.
side. You see,
Yes.
there are other programs in the market. First of all, guys, everybody, you must protest. Yeah, you must protest to first of all make the case, and possibly also make a savings. And my suggestion would be, uh, do it yourself professionally. If you can't, because of lack of time or expertise, hire a professional, and hire any professional. It doesn't have to be Raytax Group, but hire a professional because they will do the job better. Now, with Raytax Group, the advantage that I feel is, unlike many other programs which is floating in the market, Raytax Group is contingency based. It's if there is a tax reduction, they will get 30% of that. All right, so that's what the benefit is. So they saved $2,000, they will get $600, and that too, if you use my code, which is a promotional code for the first year, is Mizan. You get the first year 20%. So that $600 expense on your $2,000 saving would automatically come down to $400. So everything is contingency based, and that's where the value comes in. I think that's my last word, Kiapa. And finally, thank you again, and thank you, Best, for giving us this opportunity.
Yes, thank you very much.
আপনারা যারা আমাদেরকে শুনছেন এবং দেখছেন, এতক্ষণ দেখলেন এবং রের কথা শুনলেন, আমি আশা করি আপনাদের যে জেনারেল একটা নলেজ দরকার ছিল, প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স কিভাবে আমরা প্রোটেস্ট করতে পারি, আমরা ডেডলাইন কবে কবে, আমাদের আশপাশের কাউন্টিগুলো, কলিন কাউন্টি আছে এখানে, এখানে ডালাস কাউন্টি আছে, এখানে বেশ কয়েকটা কাউন্টি আশপাশের, এবং আমার যখন আমরা পোস্ট করেছি বেস্টের পেজে, আমি কিন্তু প্রত্যেকটা কাউন্টির ডেডলাইনগুলো ওখানে উল্লেখ করে দিয়েছি। সো আপনারা যারা দেখছেন এই ডেডলাইনগুলো খেয়াল রাখবেন এবং অবশ্যই প্রোটেস্ট করবেন। ইউ মাস্ট get benefited. If not, there is nothing to lose. So why not try to get the benefit? So that's our conclusion of this property tax talk today. And I really thank you, Ray, for making your time coming here in this awkward time. It's 4 to 5 o'clock today. And I know you may have other things to do, but you postponed everything, and you are in our show. Thank you so much from Best Committee. And Mizan Bhai, you know, we always thank you for bringing that lively discussion. And when I talk to you in any Best talk, it's just very fluent and clear idea. And I always love to have you in the Best talk, so we can give community some good suggestions and good insight of real estate or property tax. And of course, Ray, you are formally invited to our Best Boishakhi Mela on 27th April in Grand Center Plano.
It's a New Year celebration, the Bengali New Year celebration.
It's a Bangladeshi New Year celebration. Actually, today in Bangladesh is our
the New Year started.
New Year Day. That's why I am wearing this flowers.
She's in a very traditional attire. Yeah.
So you will be very happy if you come to our Boishakhi Mela on 27th. You will see a lot of shopping, lot of authentic food, Bangladeshi food. You will hear our very popular band from Bangladesh. They are coming here to give a nice concert, and this is it has a concert hall. I hope the concert will be really successful, and we want to see you there.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
And যারা আমাদেরকে দেখছেন, আমরা দুজনের সাথে কথা বললাম, আপনারা এতক্ষণ দেখলেন, এবং এটি কিন্তু আমাদের বেস্টের পেজে থেকে যাবে। আপনাদের যখনই সময় হয়, যারা মিস করেছেন, অবশ্যই এই প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের উপরে আমাদের যে আজকে ডিসকাশন ছিল এটা শুনবেন, এবং আপনাদের সাথে আমাদের অবশ্যই আবার দেখা হবে। বেস্টের মেলায় তো দেখা হবেই 27শে এপ্রিল, আর এর আগেও বোধহয় কোনো না কোনো রবিবার ঠিক আমরা এসে পড়ব আবার কোনো বিষয় নিয়ে, আর কোনো অতিথি নিয়ে। তো সবাই ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন, এবং বাংলাদেশে পহেলা বৈশাখ উদযাপিত হচ্ছে, সেই ছোঁয়া আপনাদের জীবনে এই প্রবাসেও এসে লাগুক। আপনারা সবাই সুস্থ থাকবেন, ভালো থাকবেন, পরিবার পরিজন নিয়ে আনন্দ করবেন, বৈশাখী মেলা উদযাপন করবেন। সবাইকে রইল বেস্টের মেলায় আসবার জন্য বিনম্র আহ্বান। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।
Allah Hafiz. Thank you so much. Bye bye.